My name is Angaangaq, and it means the man who looks like his uncle. I was named after my father's older brother. His name is Quyagi, which means the beloved one. But he was named after his uncle Angaangaq, who then was named after his uncle Quyagi. We go really, really long ways back. We don't really know exactly how long. But if you ever have a chance to go to the sacred site on my grandmother's land, my father's mother's land, you'll notice that they have lived there for thousands of years. But how old I am, I really don't know. Nobody seems to know. I'm really happy that you came. And I had agreed to talk about ceremonies. I don't know if you were there earlier when I talked about ceremonies, different kinds. Today I wanted to talk about creating smoke. You know, when we were young, we were taken care of by our father's mother. Her name is Angaangaq. That's a traditional way of doing things. Mothers and fathers are hunting and fishing to provide for the family. And then grandmothers would take care of the grandchildren. I was born into that family at the very end of that ancient tradition where things were done like in the old days. Then I walked into a whole new modern world in the early part of the 50s, which changed everything. I grew up knowing that life is a ceremony in itself, worthy celebrating with a ceremony. So that means that my life is worth celebrating with a ceremony every single day, as it is for you. Your life is worth celebrating with a ceremony every single day. So we will ask, what is a ceremony? And I always remember when we asked Angaangaq, our grandmother, a question, or somebody asked her a question, she will always look like she's thinking, and then she will answer. She says that a ceremony is something you will create personally. And you create it, and then it will start to grow inside yourself. And anything growing inside of self, sooner or later, within ourselves, a bud will be born. And that bud will begin to open. And that's the one which becomes a flower inside yourself. And then when you come to a full blossom, that flower will have seeds. And then my grandmother would say, but because you and I will live here on this earth, you believe it or not, the winds of change will come upon you. And when that happens, the wind will blow away the seeds which come from your ceremonies. whatever ceremony you have created inside yourself, and you do that over and over and over until you become happy with it, and then you live that ceremony, and the winds of change will come. You will blow away. And then she will say, and then another ceremony will be born somewhere else. And she will say, it stems from you. It started from you. But now it's no longer yours. Or you know personally that it started from you, but it's no longer yours. So another ceremony is born. And then that person who learned from you during ceremony will do the same. Within that person, that things will grow until that person is happy with that ceremony. And then a bud will be born, a flower will begin to open, and then it will come to a full blossom. I think for me, it's so amazing to think that whatever it is that you create of your ceremony, to celebrate your own life, that it will come to a full blossom. And I think for myself, it's so beautiful that you will create that amazing flower within yourself, which will come to a full blossom. And then the winds of change will come, and it will blow away those seeds so they can go somewhere else. So that's the ceremony. There's no set ways of doing a ceremony. That's what I have learned. Personally, I do many things on my ceremony. I've been doing that all my life. Oh. I have done many ceremonies. The other night, I was walking, and the moon was in a quarter. I was alone in the darkness. So I chanted the song of the moon. And when I was younger, I would always close my eyes and chant. And for some reason, the other day, I had closed my eyes. And then when I finally opened them up, there were people standing a meter or two away from me, listening to my chanting. Luckily, it was in the middle of the night, so they couldn't see that I was blushing. I felt so stunned that people will come and listen to me that when I'm doing my own ceremony. But that's what happened. So I just smiled at them and it touched my heart and then walked away. Because for me, my life is worth celebrating with a ceremony. Often though, often I think and believe in myself that my life is not worth celebrating because it's not creating things I see myself doing when I was younger. So I begin to lose myself, not believing in me, not even trusting myself, or not even respecting myself. Most clearly, I come to the point in life where I don't even love myself anymore. Then I had to sit down and I had to recreate myself, because I will always remember that beautiful grandmother we have, looking as though she's thinking and saying, life is a ceremony in itself, worthy celebrating with a ceremony. Which means that my life, no matter how I feel about myself, no matter how I am to myself, no matter what's happening in my little world, is worth celebrating with a ceremony. And what is so important to me, and I myself personally have asked my own grandmother, our own grandmother, many times, what would happen afterwards, after the ceremonies. And her main answer in my recollection, and that no one, absolutely no one can ever erase that from me. She was saying, when the ceremony loses its spirit, it becomes a ritual. So we ask, what is the spirit? When my ceremony having a spirit, because it comes from you. It started from you. You do the ceremony, and then when it loses the spirit, which means that you stop doing it, you don't do that anymore. You're busy, and you forget it, and then things happen in life, and then she says, then it will become a ritual. So somebody will ask her, what is ritual? Again, Angaangaq looks like she's thinking, and I can just see her right now. She would say, a ritual is something you and we would do because that is being done like that by other people. We don't know exactly why they do it like that, but we do it because that's the way it's being done. That's when this beautiful spirit of your ceremony loses its spirit. That's when it becomes a ritual. And it's so interesting. Angaangaq, she told us when she was about 10 years old, she went to a big mountain. I've been to that mountain many times now. Yeah. And there, a kilometer tall, small mountain, when she looked to the south, she can see to the beginning of the curvature of the earth. And that distance is around 450 kilometers. When she looked to the east, she can only see the big ice. And it was pretty tall those days, so she cannot see very far. When she looked to the west, the coast is only 300 and some kilometers away. But when she looked to the north, it's another 450 kilometers she can see. And we grew up realizing, and the way she described it, that she saw the world, and there was only one Earth, and there was only one moon, and there was only one sun. So, and I can just imagine as a 10-year-old, if I was 10-year-old, that's what I would think, that I saw the world, but I could see 900 kilometers. What she says about the ceremony is that when it loses the spirit, it becomes a ritual. And she would say, and the world as it is full of rituals. The world as it is full of rituals. So I went to the world. I have now worked in 72 countries, and I've been part of many, 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 many ceremonies in my travels. But I also realized that there are so many people, close to 8 billion of us, and most of us have lost that beautiful ceremony our life is supposed to be as. And when that spirit dies within us, it becomes a ritual. And I have seen the world. Yes, it is true what my grandmother says. The world as it is full of rituals. So I wanted to mention it again. I know that I told you that before, but for me, it's pretty important. So I wanted to come to the point where we will ask her, what is the most important ceremony for you? I remember my older cousins asking that questions. I was just still small and had no voice, hardly any voice, very shy. And again, she would look like she's thinking, and she would say, creating smoke. And that is so interesting. And then we would say that we would ask, what does it mean, creating smoke? I have noticed in the indigenous world I'm part of, around the globe, and I've been to many, many places in the world, we all have plants, all different plants from region to region, from continent to continent. We call them medicines. And those medicines, one of them is sage. And sage is one of those plants which grows everywhere on earth. When you pick her up and hang her upside down and let her dry, the scent will live. And when you put fire on it, you will create smoke. And this is what my grandmother told us. Creating smoke of all creative things, you and I will create. The only thing which will disappear in front of our eyes is smoke. It's so interesting to think about it. Yes, we have created many things. my ceremonial t-shirt because it's very, very hot here. I am going to wear more than that. That would not disappear in front of our eyes. In fact, anything you and I possess will not disappear in front of our eyes of what we created. The only thing which will disappear in front of our eyes is smoke. And thus smoke is sacred. And when you go to Siberia, when you go to Japan, when you go to Africa, South America, Europe, North America, they all create smoke. It's so interesting. How did we learn that aspect of ceremony? And we know it seems to be that we all know that in all parts of the world. My grandmother says that smoke is sacred. And when you create that, you can invite it to yourself. And it will lift away from you all the ills you carry. So we will ask, what kind of ills do you carry? Or me? Every one of us carries things within us. She would say, you most likely have smelled things you shouldn't smell. You most likely have felt things you shouldn't feel. You most likely have seen things you shouldn't see. You most likely have heard things you shouldn't hear. You most likely have said things you shouldn't say. You probably thought things you didn't think you should not think. You probably felt things in your heart you shouldn't feel. Or you probably tasted things you should never tasted. That's how many ills every one of us have. But when we invite the smoke, it will lift away from us all the ills we carry. That's a beautiful thing of creation. One of my most important memories of my childhood, my grandmother, our grandmother, I keep saying my grandmother, our father's mother. She comes from the further north of a tiny village way up north. My father's father, my grandfather, his oldest brother was a government agent. The government has started to arrive there. Yeah. And he was the chief of the village. So his youngest brother, my grandfather, went to visit him in his kayak. And then after, I think, a couple of weeks travel, he went around the bend of the big mountain, and in there was the village of Egyptian. That's where my grandmother comes from. So people in the village saw a kayak coming in. So they asked the chief, But they told him, Angaangaq is coming. So he looked and said, oh, that's my brother. So they asked him, how do you know that's your brother? You cannot see his face, you cannot see his nothing. I taught him how to paddle kayak, he said. So that's my brother. And lo and behold, that was his youngest brother who came. So he went to visit his brother and the family. Those days, my grandfather was a young man, and he had seen this woman, young woman, and his eyes couldn't stop looking at this woman. But he had to leave, so he left. So the following year, he went back to the village, another 2-week travel in his kayak. Again, villagers said, kayak is coming. And the chief, my great uncle, he looked at him and said, oh, that's my brother. And then he says, he's not here to visit me. And he asked me how. He has another purpose. So, and lo and behold, my grandfather had another purpose. He came to ask for that young woman's hand. So they got married. And our grandmother, she was so interesting. They put her belongings and some food into the kayak. The belongings to the back of the kayak, and the food in front of him. And then they have waterproof sealskins on them. So they tied my grandmother up, back to back. They traveled. And Angaangaq, she would tell us that they went on their honeymoon. And she would smile. And she would say, oh, we did things. And we wanted to know, what did you do? Oh, I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. I always remember that beautiful smile on her face, remembering her journey with her new husband on the way home, to his home. That's how my grandmother came into my world. Then one day, her family came to visit. I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And my grandfather had died, so my grandmother lived in a tiny little house. Everybody came in there. And there was this old man amongst the family members. I only saw him once. He had a white man's Angaangaq, which is Angaangaq or sealskin, but he had put it on top of the sealskin. And he's a hunter. And when you have blood in your hands, you just wipe on your arms or in the front, and you could not really see what kind of color that Angaangaq, white man's Angaangaq, was in color. But sitting behind him, I could see that this Angaangaq once was a blue color. He sat down with a kushak, it's a shield or a lamp. And there were medicines of the plant world. and it was creating smoke. When I think back, personally, I still do not know if he was speaking to every one of us in that room or if he was speaking to me. I can see around me people. We were kids sitting there behind him. He was in front of us, and then right in front of him, all these people. What he said is something which has never disappeared out of my ears of what I heard, out of my mind of observing him, and things he uttered through his voice. He created smoke. I don't know if you can see it. When the smoke goes up and just disappears. And it's so interesting. And when I invite the smoke to come to me, it will lift away from me all the outer carrying. But this is what he did. He started to wash his hands over the smoke. And then he said, and when the smoke clears, I will only touch you in a good way. And he washed him again. Then he put him into his ears. And he said, and when the smoke clears, I will only hear good things from you. Then he did it again. And he put it onto his eyes. And then he said, and when the smoke clears, I will only see your beauty. And he did it again. And he put the smoke into his mouth. Then he said, and when the smoke clears, I will only say good things to you. And he did it again. He did all this, and he put it into his heart. And then he says, and when the smoke clears, you will only see my beauty. I'm now almost 73 years old. I probably was around 6 years old when it happened. I still live by it. Why? I believe of all things I have created myself, everything will stay there, but the smoke will disappear. Only the great one knows where the smoke goes. That is why when I bring it to me, it will lift away from me all the aftercarry. And it is true. Every one of us without any exception, carry a lot of ills within us. One day I want to grow up knowing within myself that I have gotten rid of all the ills I carry. Because when the smoke clears, I really want to learn to see everybody's beauty. Everybody has such a beautiful thing to give to this world. Everybody. That's what I want to learn to live with. I want to be that strong that no matter what has happened in my life, I want to see the beauty of everyone else. Yes, one day, me too. I want to be beautiful. But most likely, the makeup artist will have a hard time to create beauty in me. It takes so long to make myself beautiful. And I'm never satisfied the way I look. Because I dream one day that I will be shining my beauty like you do. Every single day. How privileged I am that you came. Now you know the most important ceremony for an old woman is creating smoke. My grandmother was a doctor. And she says, lighting smoke, it will lift away from me the ills. Washing my hands, I will only touch you in a good way. I will only hear good things from you. I will only say good things to you. I will only see your beauty. And one day, you will only see my beauty. My dream is that one day I will live like that. Oh ho, oh ho, oh, oh, I brought with me a little feather, and every feather I bring over this one and do all the four directions. Because I want to be like that eagle. I want to be cleansed for all the ills I carry. I I love to soar like an eagle. And one day I want to realize my own immensity. My deep gratitude to every one of you. I do not know who you are, and you do not know who I am. But one day, I dream that you and I, we could meet and have a chance to look at each other and embrace one another and sniff at each other so we could know each other's emotions. If we could do that, that would be amazing. Because every emotions when we have our small changes. And the changes I want to bring out of myself is to realize that everyone, and absolutely every one of us, has a gift to give to the world in which we live. One day, I want to live that gift. Please bring my greetings of love to all your family members. Tell them if they meet me downtown where you live, it would be amazing if one of you would invite me for a cup of coffee. When you come to my land, I will give you the best iced coffee you could ever imagine. But for that, should you come, you should carry at least 1 kilo of beans. Otherwise, it's iced coffee without coffee, just ice. But when I put coffee beans in it from your heart, it will be the best coffee you could ever imagine to have. Feel my gratitude. Oh ho!